Welcome students. Today we will continue with our class on history of English literature. In our last lecture we talked about metaphysical poetry, and today we will continue with the literature, particularly after Shakespeare and Ben Jonson, and we will particularly focus on drama. We will also talk about certain socio-political and religious developments that finally led to the execution of King Charles I in 1649. We will also talk about certain approaches, a development of mindset that led to the closure of English theatre in 1642. So before that, we must keep certain things in our mind, that the drama after Shakespeare, particularly, and you can also include Ben Jonson because these were the two great masters of dramatic art during that period, and drama after them is generally taken to be drama of decadence. But in fact, these dramatists were not of inferior kind, and their dramatic creations were not the work of decadence, you can say. They were today lesser known if we compare them with these two great masters, because their talent was overwhelmed, was, you can say, eclipsed by the grandeur of Shakespeare and Ben Jonson. If there were no Shakespeare or Ben Jonson in the history of English literature, most of the English historians would have given much more space to the kinds of Middleton, Fletcher, Marston, Dacre. All these dramatists were great in their own, but they could not produce the kind of drama that were already done by Shakespeare and Ben Jonson. And if we compare them with the standard of these two masters, they stand somewhat inferior in comparison, you can say. But every dramatist should be judged in his own right, and we can criticize or appreciate his achievements with reference to the socio-political conditions, his own individuality. All these things should be considered while appreciating his literary creation. So, keeping all these things in mind, let's come to our main point. What were the main socio-political developments of the period? In our last lecture, I also emphasized that the political transition from Elizabethan to Jacobean period was very smooth and there was not much change. Still, I also said at the same time that even the subtlest of change in the approach of monarch may bring about great results. And so today we will try to understand those subtle changes in approach of the two monarchs. I mean, the approach of Queen Elizabeth, and James I of England. When James I ascended the throne, there was already the aura of Elizabethan rule was on the wane. People were not that enthusiastic as during the heyday of Elizabethan period. However, everything was smooth on the surface. Now, how he began to rule and how he influenced the polity and the society, the religious approach of the people, we can discuss all these things under different heads. In terms of polity, in terms of religion, in terms of communication with people, I mean general public, and in terms of economy as well. First of all, we should understand that in economy, in the field of economy, there was not any drastic change. Of course, there were certain instances of the increasing use of technology in agriculture and all that. Still, overall, the masses led the same life. The technology still did not penetrate the the remote area of uh, England. Means most of the farmers were still dependent on conventional way of farming. Of course, there were certain changes as there was an increase in buying of farms and proliferation of gentry. All these things were there, but still these things were going on from the previous era and there was not much change. Now let's come to polity. When James first ascended the throne, I already said that everything was smooth on the surface and he took certain steps to establish peace even with the neighboring countries. And in 1604, he successfully did that by establishing peace with Spain, you can say. But it was against the will of Parliament. It was the decision was practical politically, but not in accordance with the will of the general public. So this was the theme. In terms of religion, when he ascended the throne, he assured everyone that he is not going to chastise anyone as long as the people follow the general law of the land. But in the course of time, he began punishing the Catholics. He was very much satisfied with. He also tried to maintain distance from both the extremes, Catholicism and Protestantism, in the same way as his precursor, Queen Elizabeth, did. But out of certain religious compulsion, there are certain instances that he chastised, he punished some of the Catholics, and we can also take example of the gunpowder plan of 1604 or 5 that was plotted to kill him, but Guy Hawke, the person who was involved in that plan, was caught at the time just before the plan was to be executed, and it was foiled. But there was conspiracy against him only because of his religious approach. You can say we cannot use the term neutrality here because he was not as neutral as Elizabeth. He was dwindling. Sometimes he preferred Puritans and sometimes Catholics. We can also find the reference of these things in Milton's Lycidas when he accuses the monarch of favoring the Catholics and letting them acquire higher position in church. So all these things were there. Puritans were not satisfied with the monarch and Catholics were also not satisfied. So this was the condition. Communication with people, there was no communication in the real sense of the term with the people. He created a group of people, group of lawyers, and sometimes he was also not willing to listen to their suggestions. And finally, we have already talked about economy, that there was not any great change in these terms. So now we should see how these things, how these approaches of the king affected, influenced the literature of the period that we generally recognize as decadence literature. The polity and religious approach of the king led to the censoring of, the banning of a drama, the game of chess by Middleton. It was censored after initial earlier great performance, very successful performances, and it was censored only because it satirized certain Spanish peoples with a Spanish way of life, and the king did not want to hurt the sentiment of Spanish people. That's why I already told that the general sentiment was against the Spanish, but he, out of political pragmatism, you can say, he established a peaceful relation with those people and gave space to the Spanish ambassador in his court. And on the instigation of Spanish ambassador, some people also are of that opinion, this drama was censored. Again, such type of incidences led the dramatists to look for some other themes, and they diverted their attention towards the events from the general life of people. And then we find that the developments like domestic comedy and city comedy, you can just find the source here in the approach of the king. Any drama just disturbing the political fabric or the religious mindset of the king could face censor, and so the dramatists of the period were bound to explore new themes. Sometimes those new themes were not in accordance to the taste of the time, and that is why these dramatists were given a general name, decadence dramatists. We should not use this decadence word because that gives a pejorative connotation, and that is a kind of insult to the talent of these dramatists. So now when they started looking for new themes, they were not always successful. What they did was they introduced a kind of intense passion, the kind of intense violence in their drama, and tried to just encapsulate, or you can say the better word will be, they tried to compensate the lack of the thematic variation with the intensity of passion, and they expected people to like those things, and sometimes they became also successful for that period as well, during that period as well. The great example of the Duchess of Malfi. Sometimes they were successful in exploring something new, but in that way, they really gave the Puritans a ground to oppose them and call them really decadent. The example may be given of its PT. She is a whore. In this, probably for the first time in Elizabethan and Jacobean drama, the theme of incest was there. And the action unfolds and finally concludes in the same way as Romeo and Juliet Shakespearean drama, you can say. And so Puritans criticized it a lot. So here again the door was closed. So we have in these three dramas, three examples, the Game of Chess, the Duchess of Malfi, and its PTC as a whole, we can find that how disparate the dramatists of the period and period were to explore new things, to present new things, to just overcome the you can say scale set by Shakespeare and Johnson. They wanted to just rise up to that stature, but they were not successful somehow because it was very difficult to achieve that stature, achieve that grandeur. What Shakespeare and Ben Jonson had already done, it was done once. That feat could never be achieved, but they tried continuously, and that is their talent. It does not mean that they were not talented. They were talented, and they produced good drama in their own right. If they are judged, they are to be judged in their own right. They were quite successful, but if we judge them on parameters set by Shakespeare and Ben Jonson, they were not of that stature. This is simply the theme. So now I hope you must have an idea of how the approach, even the subtle approaches, difference in approach of the monarchs could affect the development of literature and drama in particular of the period. So King James, now let's again come to the point of developments that led to the execution of King Charles I. King James was very rigid, and he wanted to use parliament according to his wishes to meet his ends. And he had found some cunning ways to handle the assemblies in Scotland, but he was not able to do the same in England. And there was a tussle between the parliament and the king. Finally, the king had no way, and he dissolved parliament and began to rule on his own without the support of parliament, without the sanction of parliament. This tussle continued for some years, and towards the end of his reign, he became virtually powerless. And for 2 years almost, when he was still alive, King Charles discharged most of the duties. And the same thing he inherited from his father when he ascended the throne, King Charles. With slight differences, he continued with the same approach with parliament, and he also was in the habit of dissolving parliament again and again, and won for 11 years. He only reassembled parliament when he was in dire need of finances. So when parliament refused to do that, refused to consent to his demands, he also began to charge different kinds of levies on farmers and traders to extort money from them. All these things were creating a kind of discontent among the people and the parliamentarians. Finally, there were Puritan forwards already there, and most of the parliamentarians were in favor of Puritans. Now, the tussle was of a different kind. It was not between the Puritans and the Catholics. It was between the Puritans and the Royalists. All the Royalists were considered enemy by the parliamentarians. So finally in 1642, at once Parliament closed all the theatres by an act. The reason was given that during this stirring time, this time, disturbing time, it was not possible to continue with the performances of plays on public places. So it was the reason given by Parliament, but the real reason was that in the view of parliamentarians, playhouses were the meeting place of the dissenting royalists who were against parliamentarians, and that is why they took such steps. The result was finally that the drama was to face the just wrath of the Puritans. Some people also argue that since most of the parliamentarians were Puritans by temperament, they did not support the dramatic art that were developing during that period. We have just noticed the theme of incest used in the drama named It's Pity She is a Whore. This drama was written by John Ford, who was one of the most significant dramatists of Caroline period, the reign of King Charles I. So after the closing of theatre, finally they revolted against the king, and the revolt, the civil war began just afterwards in 1642. It continued for 3-4 years, and finally in 1645 and 1646, the king was defeated. He was produced before the court, and finally he was executed in 1649. And the monarchy was just removed, you can say, and a new kind of government, a republican government, was just came into being in England. That continued for around 11 years, means till 1660. But in reality, before 2 years in 1658, the Cromwell, the leader of the parliamentarians who established republican government in England, died, and his son took the command, but he was forced to flee abroad, and finally monarchy was restored in England. So all these were the developments. We have already noticed the haughtiness of the king, the difference in personalities, their approaches, their impractical approach towards parliament, their inability to just take all the parliamentarians with them, and all these things were somehow responsible for the final execution of the King of England. So this was the case, and I hope all these developments will help you understand their influence on literature when we will come to the texts. Of course, I can give one more example from Milton, because it is generally believed that out of compulsion, because still in spite of the coming of press and all that, printing press, most of the artists, the men of letters, were still looking for patronages, royal patronages for their well-being, you can say. Some of them were against the royalists, and they were clearly on Puritan sides, and Milton was one of them, chief among them, because he was given uh, some important responsibilities during Cromwell government. But he was not completely satisfied with the Puritan government, the way they just tried to impose censorship on every aspect of life. Milton was not satisfied with that. Milton was not okay with that. He opposed that move in some of his um, pamphlets, prose works. But by temperament, Milton supported republicanism, and this can be found in Paradise Lost. Finally, when we see that Saturn is looking for a kind of democratic arrangement in the realm of God, and for that he is thrown out of paradise. He, in the opening scene of Paradise Lost, we find Saturn just uttering some dialogues that it's better to rule in the hell than to serve in the heaven, or such kind of things can be continuously found all through the narrative. And finally, we also see that Saturn was successful in defeating the purpose of God. Means it was the anti-royalist approach of Milton that knowingly or unknowingly led him to establish Saturn as a kind of hero of Paradise Lost. So all these things are there. We will discuss these things in detail when we will come to Milton separately. So for now, this is this much. I hope you will understand literature a lot after this lecture. Thank you.